Next up, we have Ana Rios. Ana is a climate change specialist at the Inter-American Development Bank across the street. And she's the co-author of a recent report called Agriculture and Future Climate in Lag, Systemic Impacts and Potential Response, that I hope she will share some insights of with us, and also talk about IDB's work in financing the kind of projects we've been talking about in Latin America. Please, Ana.
Good afternoon, and thank you for the invitation. Just to begin with, this is a work that was done with Walter Vergara, who's not here today. And I was given three main tasks for this presentation. One is to highlight some key needs and areas of work that we should focus in the region. Also, the other one is to promote the discussion. And the last one, which I found out like a few minutes ago, is to talk about finance. So I will try my best within the 10 minutes limit that I have. And just to begin with, we have been talking about general trends, global trends. And now I will start by focusing on Latin America and the Caribbean, the area in which the IDB works, and some key aspects about the ag sector in the region, which I have grouped in three categories. Why is agriculture important from the economic point of view, from the social, and also from the climate perspective? From the economic point of view, it contributes to 5% of the regional GDP. In some countries, it reaches up to 10% of the GDP. Also, we have that the region is the main source of sugar, coffee, and soybean. It contributes to over 50% of the global exports of these commodities. Also, from the social point of view, and coming back to one of the questions that was raised in the beginning of the session, is should we focus on smallholders? And here we have some topics that might help answering this question and also confirming what was exposed before. In the LAC region, 7 out of 10 farms are from smallholders. Also, we have that the sector contributes to more than 50% of the household income among poor households. And another key fact is that it contributes to a significant employment of unskilled labor. From the climate perspective, here we have something that is different to what we have seen and we have heard today about the worldwide trends. In the LAC region, land use change, forestry, and agriculture are the main sources of emissions. It contributes to over 70% of the emissions compared to the 25 average global factor. And then also the last point, which comes from a book that we published last year. I brought some copies that were left outside, but also for those of you who are interested, at the end I will present the links to these studies. We found that in order to reach climate stabilization goals, we need to focus on policies in the energy sector, but also in the agriculture, land use change, and forestry. This is to reach the 2 tons per capita for the 2 degrees Celsius target. So what are some key features, which I also call some challenges as well as opportunities for us to work on and to focus and to provide finance as well as technical assistance? One of the key features we have that over 300 billion comes from the aggregate agricultural output. And there was a significant increase in land devoted to agriculture, over 40% increase in cropland in Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, Bolivia, and Chile in the last 10 years. And also overall, we see that an additional 31 million hectares were placed into agriculture. All of this at the expense of a reduction of pastures, as well as an increase in deforestation. one interesting fact that I just read yesterday in a recent report is that 70% of the deforestation worldwide is in Latin America and the Caribbean. So this is one of the important areas to tackle in the region. In addition, 34% of the croplands show degradation. We have two main factors here, deforestation as well as degradation. And also, most of the agriculture is rain-fed, over 90%, but the sector accounts for 66% of the water withdrawals. We have a potential here to increase the efficiency in water use and at the same time reduce energy consumption, which was highlighted in one of the first presentations this morning. Also, we have a potential for increases in productivity, mostly among small and medium producers. So and we have seen, and in the previous section it was highlighted, how agriculture affects climate change. But also here what we have is the other way around, how climate change impacts the agricultural sector. And we have that climate change will have and will put some additional pressure over land and water. And also it's going to exacerbate some social problems and economic situations that we already have in the region. Some of the climate change impacts that we have, and all of them are highlighted more in detail in the report, include the increases in soil and air temperature. This is like an average trend. Some regions, this is not going to be the case. Also, decreases in soil moisture, sea level rise, which is important for several countries. For example, in the case of Guyana, over 25% of the area is going to be impacted by sea level rise. And among these 25% area, over 60% is devoted to agricultural production. We have changes in precipitation, also increases in the frequency and intensity of extreme weather events. Just to give you a concrete example, there has been a 20-fold increase in the incidence of droughts and flooding in the Latin American region between the first half of the 20th century and the first decade of the 21st century. Also, in the case of Central America, most of the tropical storms came from the Atlantic Ocean. Now we also have some storms coming from the Pacific Ocean. It's also going to affect the distribution of plants and animals. Coffee, one of the crops presented previously by our colleague in Costa Rica, is going to change the optimal area for production from 1,200 meters above sea level to 1,400 by 2020 to 1,600 by 2050. Also in Central America, nowadays over 80% of the area is optimal for coffee production. By 2050, this is going to decrease to 30 to 40%. And we also have effects on ecological interactions. For example, the incidence of coffee rust, which was aggravated by a higher temperature and higher moisture. So what are the potential actions? What can we do? Some areas in which we should focus. One of them is to revise current policies, which in many cases have not considered climate change, and try to channel the resources for a low carbon resilient agriculture. This might involve risk management, the use of crop insurance, which incentivize the use of adaptation practices, as well as the use of conservation agriculture, value-added and change management, traditional knowledge. That's one of the areas that we see an interest in this area for both climate change mitigation and adaptation, the use of resilient varieties, and promote research and extension. Also, something that is commonly mentioned in the region is to promote adaptation-based mitigation. as was previously mentioned, and especially in most Latin American countries, you cannot promote something just for the sake of mitigation. It has to be mostly driven by adaptation. And I think the participation of the private sector is important. The public resources are not enough. Around 2.5% of public expenditures are for the agricultural sector, and this is not enough to provide all the resources for the labor and different work that we need to do. And what we are doing in terms of financing, we are supporting NAMAs, also technical assistance in different areas, such as research, leveraging private sector involvement, promoting the access to climate finance, which we see that the ministries of agriculture are kind of lagging behind in this respect in ways how to access these funds. And just two questions that maybe can open the discussion and dialogue that we normally get when we go to different countries in Latin America is that the agricultural producers ask us, what's the difference between what we have been doing until now, all these years, and what you're telling us to do? What's new? What's the big deal about it? And the second one is, how do we translate all this knowledge into the practice? How do we combine the theoretical knowledge with the practical knowledge as well as the traditional knowledge? Thank you. And here is my contact information for any additional details that you're interested. And those two are the links to the publication that I presented as well as the book. Thank you.